Namaskar my friends, and today I'm back here with another action figure review, and this time we are taking a look at the CT Toys Baiman Hush Batman. Yes, you heard that right. Not Batman, but Baiman. Now, just to be clear right off the bat, no pun intended, this is a knockoff, a bootleg, and unofficial cousin twice removed of the original MAFEX Hush Batman, and somehow this figure is being talked about a lot right now, or for the past couple of months. Collectors are buzzing, reviewers are making videos, timelines are flooded, so I thought, alright, let's jump into the Baiman multiverse as well. So starting off with the packaging, and honestly, if you already own the MAFEX Hush Batman, this box is going to feel kind of familiar. The overall design is quite similar, but this box is slightly smaller compared to the original MAFEX release. On the front, you've got a bunch of Batman images, the figure clearly visible through the window, and of course the name Baiman, just in case there was any legal confusion left. Around the box, you get renders of Baiman on both sides, and on the back, there's the full showcase, extra heads, accessories, hands, and all that good stuff. Everything the original had, allegedly. Overall, this is a very standard looking box, nothing groundbreaking, nothing fancy, no premium vibes here, but it does the job. So, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a closer look at the CT Toys Baiman Hush Batman. So, as tradition dictates, let's first take a look at the accessories that come with the CT Toys Baiman Hush Batman. Starting off, we do get a Bruce Wayne head sculpt, which we'll definitely talk about a little bit later in the video. Then we get an angry Batman face sculpt, and yes, as you can see, Batman looks very angry. He looks pissed off. Again, we'll circle back to these portraits a little bit later, but for now, just know that this man has had a very bad day. Moving on, we do get batarangs, and not just one pair, we actually get two different pairs of batarangs, each with a different design. So here's the first pair, and here's the second one right here. Nice variety, and honestly, that's pretty cool to see. We also get grappling gun hands, and yes, you can attach the shot out grappling line to the gun. You actually get this setup for both hands, which is a nice touch, but there's a catch. The grappling line itself, not great. Attaching it to the grappling gun is a kind of a pain. It just keeps falling off. So yeah, take my word for it, this is not the strongest connection in the world. But then again, this is a knockoff, so expectations should be kept in check. You also get a shorter version of the shot-out grappling gun in case you want a more subtle look. As for hands, oh yes, you get a bunch of hands. You get the batarang between the finger hands, along with several other expressive hand and gesture options. Out of the box, the figure already comes with two closed fists attached, along with the default head sculpt. And finally, you do get a flight stand included. Unfortunately, my flight stand is a little bit broken, but nothing a little bit of super glue won't fix. And yeah, that's pretty much everything that you get in the box. Now, taking a look at the figure itself, one of the very first things you'll notice, and that's something that was also present in the original MAFEX Hush Batman, is the poseable wired cape. And yes, the cape is actually pretty big and quite poseable, just like the original. That being said, it's not perfect. All those bendy wires that are stitched into the cape don't fully connect all the way up to the neck piece, which means you don't get the exact same cape posing experience that you get with the OG release. So no, this isn't a one-to-one, but, and this is important, it still works really well, especially when you remember that this is a KO figure. I can't stress more on that. In my opinion, the cape here is actually quite good for what it is. You can pose it nicely, you can get some dramatic shapes going. As you can see on your screen, it also holds its form reasonably well. The sides of the cape are also nice and wide, which really helps in, when you're going for those classic Hush style poses. And honestly, I had a lot of fun posing with this cape. I really did. I genuinely think that the collectors who don't own the original MAFEX are going to really enjoy messing around with this guy, especially when you're trying to pose the cape on this figure. Is it better than the original? Nope. But for a knockoff, this is surprisingly solid and it does the job really well. Now, taking a proper look at the figure itself, yes, this is very clearly the exact copy of the MAFEX Hush Batman with a few changes here and there, which I'll get into just a little bit. Overall, I have to say he looks pretty good, at least as far as I'm concerned. The colors, however, are definitely off. I don't own the original MAFEX Batman, I never have, but I've seen it in person, and from what I remember, the color tones on this one are noticeably different. Having said that, this figure still looks decent. It doesn't feel as premium as the original version, but it's actually a pretty solid attempt by CT Toys to recreate this figure as a knockoff. When you look at how he stands and how he poses and just the overall silhouette, he really doesn't look too bad, especially when you consider that this is a KO. Now, taking a closer look at some of the joints, especially the elbow joints, you'll notice a small shiny metal piece peeking through the gaps. This is something that is not present in the original MAFEX. So yes, that's one of the easier tells that you're dealing with a knockoff here. Sculpt wise though, I actually think the sculpt work is really nice on the figure. But where this figure falls behind is in the paint applications, especially the muscle definition. The original MAFEX had much better shading, highlights and paint placement that really brings out the anatomy. On this figure, the depth just isn't there. It's very flat. The muscles are sculpted well, but the paint simply doesn't do them justice. Now, moving on to the head sculpts. Starting with the default head that comes attached out of the box, you'll notice there's a little bit of a sculpt detail missing on the forehead, and the paint around the nose and eyes isn't the cleanest either. The second masked head has similar issues. Again, you can see missing details on the forehead, as it almost feels like small changes were intentionally made so that this isn't a one-to-one copy of the original. The lips and mouth area aren't the best when it comes to paint applications, but for a KO, it works. And then we have the Bruce Wayne head sculpt, or should I say Bruce Baiman, and this one definitely looks different from the original. The sculpt and paint aren't the cleanest, but the blue highlights in the hair is actually pretty good. You can tell that they tried to replicate the original here but didn't quite stick the landing. Another thing worth mentioning, there's a noticeable gap between the neck and the joint when you use the flesh tone neck piece. And the masked neck joint already shows pain rubbing and scruffing, which again immediately reminds you that this is a KO. So yes, all of these little things add up, but at the end of the day, it's pretty good for what it is, especially for the price. Apart from the paint rub issues, there's one more problem that's worth mentioning here. As you can see that the knee joint on the legs has a habit of riding up over the top of the knee sculpt. This is something you really need to keep an eye on, especially while posing the figure. If you fully bend the knees, then try to bring the legs back into a straight position. The knee joint can sometimes catch on top of the knee, which can potentially cause paint scrapping or rubbing over time. Thankfully, I didn't personally run into any serious paint damage, but it's definitely something that's worth pointing out. So let's get into the articulation, and honestly, I am not going to spend too much time here. This is a KO. The articulation is very similar to what you get with the original MAFEX Hush Batman, and the good news is the articulation here is actually quite good. As you've already seen earlier in the video, this figure poses really well, and there's not a whole lot more to say beyond that. Now, you might run into a few joint issues or slight range limitations depending on the copy you get, because let's be honest, quality control on KOs is never consistent. On my copy though, I didn't run into any major articulation problems at all. Keep your expectations in check, but having said that, this figure articulates really well, and more importantly, he poses really well. Now, taking a look at some figure comparisons, here he is next to the McFarlane Toys Azrael Batman, the Marvel Legends Venom, and the Star Wars Black Series Clone Wars Darth Maul. And this should give you a pretty good idea of how Batman Hush or Baiman Hush scales with figures from different lines. So, with that out of the way, let's get into my final thoughts. If you already own the original MAFEX Hush Batman, you honestly do not need this figure, unless, of course, you're picking it up for spare parts. And let's be real, MAFEX does have a bit of a history when it comes to joints breaking over time, especially with regular posing. So if you know how to fix action figures or like tinkering with them, having this around as a donor body actually makes a lot of sense. Now, on the other hand, if you are someone who doesn't want to spend over $100 on the original MAFEX Batman, then this might just be the option for you. Is it perfect? No. Does it have problems? Oh yes, God knows he does. But having said that, it's not really that bad. In fact, I'll go out on a limb and say that this is actually a pretty decent release by CT Toys, all things considered. For people who just want a Hush Batman on their shelf or simply want a good-looking Batman at literally 1/4 the price, this is honestly a solid option. So no, this is not a must-get. But if you're tempted, if you're curious, if you're on a budget, then you can pick this up. And you probably won't hate it, especially considering how cheap he's selling for right now. And yeah, that pretty much wraps up my review. If you enjoyed this review, smash that like button, drop a comment, share it with your fellow collectors and your family members, your girlfriends, boyfriends, whoever you can. And please subscribe, because apparently that helps the algorithm gods stay happy. And always remember, till all are one. I'll see you later. Ciao.